currently we've only got in North Yorkshire 2 candidates for mayor. We've got a Conservative candidate and you're standing as an independent candidate. Can you just explain a bit about I think a lot of people don't understand what the mayor role's around. Could you explain a bit more what a mayor does?
The Mayor of North Yorkshire, or York and North Yorkshire, is a new role that's going to be created, and it's a very powerful role. It's going to be somebody who's going to oversee transport, housing, help obviously in relation to trying to boost the economy, green initiatives, so all to do with the environment, and also importantly overseeing the office of the Police and Fire Crime Commissioner. So in effect you are the Police Fire Crime Commissioner as of the election in May next year, but I would appoint somebody to carry out that role, overseen by myself, with obviously the background of my police service, which is historical police service.
So we're very used to political roles, aren't we, in MPs and in crime commissioners and in local councillors. So they in a way have kind of 2 masters, don't they? So they've got their own political party. And they're also accountable to the public that voted them in. I know you're standing as an independent, so that really means, does that only give you the one master then, and does that change the approach and the dynamics?
Your master, when you're elected to mayor, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that the public are the ones who want things to happen in their areas, their localities, and you listen to them. You've obviously got to work with government to get the resources and the commitment to deliver on the ground, and that's what I believe the role is.
And you'll hear this sort of terminology that it gives North Yorkshire a voice in Westminster, but with politics it also gives Westminster a foothold in North Yorkshire to influence things more. What's your kind of take on which way the power kind of goes?
The power must be for the people of York and North Yorkshire. Negotiating that North Yorkshire must be the driving force, what's delivered for North Yorkshire, and Westminster is part of that, but not allowing them to basically be the masters of the situation.
And why was it something, the changes, we've seen a big change, haven't we, with the borough councils going, and we've now just got a York City Council and a kind of a super council, if you like, for the rest of the county. Did you agree with that change then, and do you agree with the sort of structure as it's going forward?
I think the idea of it appeals, that there should be more power to the areas where they should be represented by people who have an understanding of it and a passion for that area, which is a Yorkshireman for Yorkshire basically, which is what I am. I think that there's worries because government maybe want to try and get control, and they will get control if somebody is elected from a political party, because they will then control the narrative. That's why, as an independent, I'm trying to turn the tide, really, by saying, yeah, we'll have somebody who is passionate, fights for Yorkshire, is good enough with all the skills to achieve that, but not allow Westminster to dictate the terms.
And when sort of in a way a similar role came with the sort of structure change of like police, fire and crime commissioners, or initially police commissioners, initially it was said that it shouldn't be a political role, but then it suddenly had all the main parties vying to take that kind of key position. How do you see the role in North Yorkshire? We've got a Conservative commissioner. Do you feel that she has represented the people, or has she been too much on the side of the Conservative Party, or too much on the side of the police and fire service? Has she got the balance right on what she needed to do?
I think that when the police crime commissioners were announced to start in 2012, the idea was it was to try and get somebody elected from the community to act as a conduit between the public and the police. But it was hijacked, maybe that was the plan all along, by the political party of the day, which was the Conservatives who introduced it. We've had now since 2012, and yet we've seen in real terms police numbers decline. We've seen certainly recruitment being rushed, training rushed, and I think we're getting, unfortunately, the result of that by people seeing that they're not getting anything investigated. The amount of crimes detected is horrendously poor. So I think it's really been hijacked, and I suspect the political parties, the main parties, want to do exactly the same with the Mayor for York and North Yorkshire. The present Police Fire Crime Commissioner, I don't wish to be too critical, but clearly she's not had very good reports from the Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary Fire and Rescue Service, which I would have, if I had been elected in 2021 when I stood as an independent, I would have been aiming to be as an outstanding service for the police and the fire services. And I think it is very, very achievable. So I've got grave concerns that the political parties are doing a lot of talking and not delivering, and we need to start delivering to get value for the money for the people who pay the taxes, who pay the rates, and for protecting particularly the vulnerable in society, which I believe are being let down.
And we're talking on the day where the Mayor of London has just gone live with the much expanded ULEZ. What's your feeling about ULEZ? Would you introduce a similar scheme for, you know, bigger cities in, say, York or in Harrogate even? What's your kind of take on what he's trying to do and what he's actually achieving with it?
I think ULEZ is about money. And I think it's not about the motorist. I don't think it's about the environment. They're all, you know, if it's certainly to do with the environment, we need to protect people. But the arguments don't stack up, and we can see that it's been manipulated as the data. If we were really serious and certainly talking about London, you would be first and foremost start a strategy where you look at the underground, where clearly there are huge problems with the toxic chemicals and problems which cause breathing problems that are in the air there. But to start on the motorist, which he's already getting punished so many times in terms of paying for the various things they have to, including the fuel they put in the car, I think we need to be honest and have an open debate about this. Do we need it in North Yorkshire? No, I don't believe we do, and I wouldn't want to be overseeing that. I would like to see integrated systems. I would like to see environmental systems, park and ride systems, all to help try and make life pleasurable for people and safe, particularly near schools, hospitals, and places where small communities where people have very narrow roads, etc. But the whole basis of charging is, I think, about raising money.
And I think it's all been very interesting. Obviously, we're in North Yorkshire, quite remote from it at the moment, but it has demonstrated, if you like, the sheer power that a mayor can take. Because largely, you know, it's all talked about the Mayor of London pushing this through. It's not a group of people, is it? You know, it's all been driven by Sadiq Khan. And is that the similar sort of, just to compare the roles then, does a mayor of a county like North Yorkshire have the same kind of powers?
Absolutely, this role is powerful. I think that's why people should be very careful where they actually put the cross on the ballot paper, because they are, if they in effect vote and get elected somebody from one of the political parties, they will, different to an independent such as myself, have to follow party lines. So if they're in effect told from Westminster, whether it be Conservative, Labour, Lib Dems, that, and obviously the Greens I think would very much go along with the whole idea of some kind of charging for transport, they would have to do it. I think with my background, business background, I would be strong enough to stand up and provide the reasonable and legitimate arguments why it isn't necessary, certainly as far as I can see, in the vast majority of areas within York and North Yorkshire.
So you've mentioned that your background is, well, a number of things really, so policing, but also you ran a small business in Pateley Bridge for 20 years. And I think you sort of acknowledged that small business is a massively important part of North Yorkshire. What influence can a mayor have then to support local business?
I think that a local mayor will have a massive influence on small and medium-sized business. I think number one is looking at things practically, so that initiatives which are going to be damaging to those areas where there are small and medium-sized businesses need to be carefully considered, because they can be so damaging. A proposal to change a road system can disrupt that area for months on end, which means that those businesses who are already struggling end up closing. So I think quite often we lose sight that, you know, we should look at the foundations. We've got solid foundations in this country, and particularly in North Yorkshire, with small and medium-sized businesses who've helped the area become and stay what it is at the moment. But by always thinking big and big projects, we lose sight of that. And a lot of those big businesses are in it for the quick profit, and to then, if it doesn't work out, leave it devastated. The small businesses and medium-sized businesses have gone by the wayside. I would say, as well as running a small business in all that time, the well-known oldest sweet shop in the world in Pateley Bridge, famous, building it up to a fantastic business and mail order business, I've also run other businesses, including car sales in Leeds, property development and property rentals. So I've got an extensive background. I've worked for a bank as an investigator on multi-million-pound budgets. So I've got an understanding of what business is about, and I think a lot of elected officials haven't got that business background, which if you've got that understanding, you understand all the pressures that those small and medium-sized businesses have to go through and live with every day, and those people work damned hard.
And you sort of touched on there, but I think you didn't really name it, like the Harrogate Gateway project, and that was a large sum of money, but it was a large sum of money that came with significant sort of conditions for use, or strings attached, if you like. When we get a mayor, will a mayor be able to challenge the use of some of these budgets, or be able to use it in a different way? Because one of the things that was said from the very start with the Gateway project, that they welcome the money, they just wanted it spent in a different way.
I think the trouble with a lot of councils is that they chase a pot of money, and they're not particularly good negotiators. They're not business people, because when you've chasing a fund, whether it be levelling up fund or a local fund, you actually negotiate, and they didn't look and think, let's put forward not just one project but alternatives, so we've got a fallback position should one fail because of local opposition, because it's not practical, because of the damage it's going to do to businesses. That's the difference. As an independent mayor with a business background, I would be negotiating to make sure that we do that. And when you're talking about these sums of money, they tend to chase pots of money to politicians rather than looking at how it's going to be used, and always have the ethos that money, look at it as though it's money that's coming from your own pocket, and then you'll be very careful how you spend it, who you deal with. With the Gateway scheme, I question why we have to use consultants from down south when we've got this fantastic region of North Yorkshire with all these superb businesses. Were they given opportunity to tender, to be part of a process to deliver something which would have benefited the people of Harrogate, rather than a haphazard, rushed scheme put together? And clearly North Yorkshire wouldn't have withdrawn it and backed off, classed it as dead in the water, as Andrew Jones MP said. Would they have done that if it had been well thought out? I believe that has been done simply because it didn't withstand the scrutiny that would have come through it through a legal process.
And one of the things I kind of saw with that project from the start was it wasn't really very clear exactly what the problem was that they were trying to solve. You know, they said it was all about changing the balance between car drivers and cyclists and walkers, but that wasn't really that specific. So when you were looking at spending such a large sum of money, wasn't very clear that you were actually hitting your metrics, if you like, for what you needed to do. So then when it was sort of tackled and people were sort of criticising it, it didn't really seem to stand up to scrutiny, because there seemed to be two areas of scrutiny. One was the process, which ultimately what actually was challenged, and also the sort of foundation for it, with what it was, what it was designed to do, versus I suppose some of the negative aspects of it as well. So there was a whole range of things where it just wasn't well put to the public. And also I think the media didn't. I think there's a whole range of things. I think the media weren't particularly sort of pushing it, and I think the public were fairly uninterested in it as well. I think it was just some road changes to many, so it barely gained any traction with most people.
I think the Gateway project, when you consider that consultants have been paid £2 million, you would have thought that we would have been able to get a clear, concise message what the project was about and to sell it to the public. It clearly didn't work because the public were very much divided on it. I think for businesses, they certainly weren't consulted enough to look at their angle of how things were going to work or whether it was going to affect them. And I think that it was more, looking at it now, a vanity project to spend a pot of money, and that money is like a rainbow where there's a pot of gold at the end of it and they're chasing it. And in real terms, that £2 million should have actually been able to deliver to the public and everybody else, wow, we want this project because it's going to give us so much and the benefits are so great. None of that came forward. And as I said previously, clearly the process wouldn't withstand scrutiny. Otherwise, they would have forged ahead with it. Ill thought out, rushed, and you've got to question the people who were involved in it. How good is their judgment? Not good enough. They're not business people. They haven't got the nous to understand when something, as Andrew Jones MP said, is dead in the water.
The role for Mayor then is quite a broad role. Obviously policing is a big part of your background, and that's not just policing. That covers aspects of social care, and like anyone our kind of age then, Keith, well, you develop a certain experience, but maybe not always an expertise in every area. Have you got an approach, to go from just Keith Tordoff, if you like, to a wider team, or how you would gain that knowledge or find input, if you like, to what you're doing?
I think the role of Mayor of York and North Yorkshire is not something where one person is going to have the answers or the knowledge in every single area, whether it be transport, housing, policing, fire, healthcare. I think that because I'm used to working with people, working to get the best out of people around me in organisations, in teams, being a leader, you understand that you listen and you recognise people who've got the skills, the attributes to actually help you deliver. And that's where I would work with people who are more expert in those fields. And to be elected mayor, you're going to bring a team together, a small team, not a big team, a small team who can help you actually work through the various nuances and problems that will be facing you. So I'm realistic about that, but it's also a case of delivering, and I keep coming back to this word delivering. There's so much, and there needs to be talk, there needs to be meetings, but sometimes there needs to be some leadership and decisiveness to actually show people we're actually delivering something on the ground. And certainly we've mentioned the mental health area. The police are looking, and they have changed things recently in relation to how they operate with people who unfortunately have got mental health problems, working with the other triage groups such as the health service, the fire service, hostels, etc., to try and work out a way so that the resources aren't all taken from one organisation, but by working together, everybody takes a share of the load.
We're in August 2023, and the elections are not for some months until May time next year. What's your approach then with campaigning or with the team? You know, what can we expect to see from you then between now and the voting day?
As an independent candidate, you're fighting against party machinery of the political parties. So what I need to do is obviously talk to as many people as possible, get them to understand what can be delivered through this new created position within York and North Yorkshire, to hopefully get people who like the idea, like what they hear, want to be part of that. And I'd love to have, say, ambassadors in each of the main areas and some of the smaller communities, so that people can help me spread the message, because it is an uphill battle for an independent, but with other people working, listening to what the message is, that we can actually make things better for young people, make things better for the elderly, make transport improvements in rural communities, all those kind of messages. And certainly policing and fire, as I found in the campaign in 2021 when I stood independently to be the Police Fire Crime Commissioner, people did come on board. They actually could understood the vision of what we needed to do to get change. Unfortunately, we didn't get a result in that. But this time, this is really most probably, if I'm honest, a final opportunity to achieve that, because once a political party gets in, it'll be very hard to unseat them from this role, and they will be working for Westminster rather than for the people, which is what I want to work for. I want to work for the people of York and North Yorkshire.
And if you were a marketing specialist, you'd be using terms like route to market, you know, to how you connect with people. And I suppose if you like, in the old days, it was fairly straightforward. You know, you got your face in the local paper and maybe went on the local radio. But now, you know, we've got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, other ones that I should probably know but don't know. Will you be looking at, are you looking at engaging on all those channels, or with all people? Because I think one of the criticisms of other parties is that they kind of just want to engage with their kind of core voter base, and there can be a little bit of nervousness about, say, motivating younger voters, because they may be younger voters that wouldn't vote for a particular mainstream party.
I think I need to appeal to as wider audience as possible, and that is through all the channels that you've mentioned, all social media, through the press, the media, through actually getting out and speaking to people in communities. It's going to be a grassroots campaign if I'm going to be successful. And as you said, we're in August, but very rapidly approaching September this week. It's not long, and to try and, in such a huge geographical area as North Yorkshire, it is very, very difficult. But with those mediums and any tools that I can use, I will try and work on to get the message out to people. And clearly young people are very important, and hopefully there's enough young people who recognise that they want a nice future to either live, work in North Yorkshire, that they will consider getting behind my campaign, hopefully become involved. You know, I want people to get in touch with me. I'm very prominent in Pateley Bridge in North Yorkshire, where people can easily find me because the name's on the building, Tordoff Gallery in Pateley Bridge on the High Street. People to hopefully reach out, get in touch with me, so that I can say, come on, let's work together, let's discuss what your problems are, what your issues are. I want to hear what people have to say, what they want me to do, what they want me to deliver if I am elected Mayor of York and North Yorkshire.
And I think it's a difficult one to really weigh up. You hear some people say that people have disengaged from politics. But then when you look at sort of turnouts, you know, we've had some by-elections. I think the turnout has been pretty similar to in sort of previous years. And you also use the phrase that, you know, there's this sort of disengagement, and they don't feel that they want to get involved with politics. How do you see things with the way the public are generally, and getting involved with councils and MPs and crime commissioners?
I fully understand why people are disengaged from a lot of the process, because most people look at, well, if nothing's going to change, you know, what can we do about it? Well, actually, the only way that we will get some change is if people actually do talk to each other and say, we've got a chance here with this guy who's independent, who actually sounds as though he's got some common sense, sounds as though he's got some experience, and he will actually, hopefully, deliver for our community, whether it be to do with the speeds on the roads, whether it's to do with the environment, whether it be to do with obviously crime, disorder, that this guy will do, and not just talk, he will actually make a change. And that's the future of not just them, the families, the friends. It's so vital, and I think that the role of Police Fire Crime Commissioner and the newly created Mayor of York and North Yorkshire is one that, as I've said previously, should definitely be independent, so you represent everybody. But people hopefully will see that this is a unique opportunity to actually get proper change, real change. You know, we talk about in Yorkshire doing it properly or proper, and this is a one, I believe, final chance where we can start helping the younger people from not having to hang around, and they can actually go into clubs, access clubs which don't cost them money, provided for by the office of the mayor, where elderly people can get transport to the hospital appointments from rural communities, because somebody, i.e. myself, with a bit of vision and a bit of planning, a bit of organisation, can deliver on these things. The politicians are going to talk about these things, but we'll go back to the sorry state that we're in, which it never gets anything changed. So I understand why people are disillusioned and disengaged, but I'm appealing to people to say, just give me the opportunity, you will see change, and you'll see fairly rapid change, and it can be done. I suggest you look even at the Labour Mayor of the North East, which is, you know, he's done the last 4 years, and he has, to be fair to him, delivered practical solutions on the ground which people appreciate in the communities.
And with things like manifestos, then, are we expecting, as an independent, are you putting out a full manifesto, or is it more like you're kind of a broader brush, if you like, this is going to be my approach? Because I think, sort of conscious that until you're in the role, looking at books, looking at things more detailed, it's very difficult to see exactly what you're going to do. But I suppose we've got that compared to a candidate that's tied to a political party, because presumably their manifesto would have to be in alignment with their own party. So there's a difference between you know, what an independent would you know, is something like your manifesto stands on itself, whereas if it's a party candidate for mayor, they're very much tied to what the party wants to do.
Yeah, political parties, the manifesto will be the party manifesto, and that's where an independent can go slightly off script in a way and say, I am also going to aim to deliver these. Clearly, going into any new business, the first thing you need to do is review the books, have a look at what is happening. But my business experience is to go into businesses, go into organisations and do that. And clearly, I would say that within 100 days I will come up with an assessment and start saying these are the things that will and are deliverable, and certainly within the first 18 months, 2 years. So you'll actually see the things happen on the ground. And some of the initiatives might seem a little bit off-piste. For example, you know, one that I previously mentioned about 2,000 households being provided with 3 chickens each, which is all about saving on the waste food going to landfill, which is about 100 tonnes per month for that statistic I've just said, but saves about £10,000 on landfill costs, but also means that the households get eggs, which are very nutritional and will help those families. Clearly, considering all the factors, who they go to, the welfare side of it and all those factors, but also things like saying that we want to start planting fruit trees. Why aren't we planting apple trees, pear trees, plum trees in public areas where the public can safely go and take that fruit free of charge? Why aren't we doing that? All helping the environment. And we can do practical things, which I don't think you're going to hear the main political parties talking about such things, and they'll try and describe it as a bit wacky and, as I said, off-piste. It's not, it's deliverable. And just as wildflower meadows out the side of roads so that you don't have to constantly be having them mowed. And as long as the safety is taken into account, these are all things which are practical. Community allotment areas in public areas where people can go and help themselves to where other members of the community who are into the gardening or into the growing of things have produced maybe potatoes and sprouts and cabbages and things so that people can go along and help themselves. It's all deliverable and we should be doing these things. And we've got a fantastic place in North Yorkshire. It's a green and pleasant county. We can make it even greener and we can be the prime example of how other areas are going to follow suit with, if I'm elected mayor, because when they see the wildflowers at the side of the roads and we're saving money on them not having to be constantly mowed, when we're seeing people being able to go and collect the fruit or the vegetables from community areas, these things are things that I've been involved in the past, and I know that they can be delivered and very quickly. But also the transport systems, free transport for younger people, because we need them to be able to travel around, to get to socialise, to get to jobs, to get to do volunteering. We need to be able to provide clubs for young people where it doesn't cost them money, whether it be an art club, a gardening group, a boxing club, where they're all learning but also socialising, getting them off the streets. And others will then see that actually there's something better than just hanging around and maybe causing antisocial behaviour. Practical solutions which are deliverable. No politicians are talking about these things, and they won't do on a party manifesto.